Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Touch Not Time Machine. The last time our guest was with us, we went back about 400 years. This time, I'm not sure how far to set the dial. Welcome back to John D. Demos of the Old Berwick Historical Society in South Berwick, Maine. What have you dug up for us, John?
Well, thanks for inviting me back, Ray. Over the winter, before I'd been working on the Scottish prisoners map, which we had a discussion about earlier, and I will be doing another one with you talking about that issue, hopefully in the near future. We're both going to be at the Scottish Games this Saturday
Yes.
in Salem, New Hampshire, and I'll be giving a presentation of that talk, which will be up on your website eventually. But this this winter, I stumbled on something that a lot of people may not know about, that these interesting Neolithic, that's the new Stone Age, uh, carved stone balls that are largely from Scotland. And these are between 3,000 and 5,000 years old. So we're going way back in time. And I have managed to there are some of them online on eBay and SD that you can purchase. And this is a couple examples of what they look like. They're palm sized, they say baseball sized
Huh. Wow.
in the US, tennis ball sized in England or in the UK.
Right.
There's a different version, a spiky version.
Huh.
And then there are really ornate, beautifully carved balls. And these are, you can get them online. A couple of these are solid resin, so they have the weight, the heft of a stone.
Right.
These had come hollow resin, three-dimensional. What I did was drill a hole in the bottom and fill them with sand, so they have a lot of weight. I'm going to use
Yeah.
these as paperweights when I'm tabling and have information about it. And I found this wonderful book, which is on the Scottish stone balls and goes over. There have been about 400 to 500 of them discovered,
My
and
goodness.
largely, most almost entirely in Scotland. There are petrospheres that are found all around the world, stone balls that are about that size. But there are a few of these carved stone balls in England and a few in Ireland and one in Norway that are
Mhm.
known of. And they started finding these back in the 19th century, or I believe earlier. And nobody really knows what they're for. So what I'm going to do is I've got a little presentation right now, which I will
Oh, great.
go to share with you, and I will give you a little um, overview on this. And again, I'm not. There's a famous historian, John Putnam Demas, or Demas, who's written several books, and he's a historian. He was at Yale, I believe he's at Harvard now. And I'm not to be mixed up with him. I am an amateur, and I worked as an
Right.
environmentalist for many years, but I'm an amateur historian, retired, and so I try to be as accurate as possible. There's some wonderful YouTube videos on this, University of Scotland, and very, really scholarly, good uh, presentations about this. And there's some crazy ones out there and some wacky ideas. And at the end of this, I'm going to be spitballing a bit with my own ideas that could be off the wall too, but
Okay, good.
that'll be it. So we will go to the presentation right now. So
Okay, so it's Petra-Spheres, Petra-Sphere.
Scottish stone balls or petrospheres. Yes.
Okay.
So here we go. So this is a collection of can you see my cursor?
Yes. Yep.
Good, good, good.
Very
These are
small.
six of the one, two, three, four, five, six, seven that I've been able to purchase. Some of them are about $25 to 50, $100. Uh, and they're really marvelous. They're remarkable. I mean, look at this. I mean, these are replicas, accurate replicas. These were done with stone tools some 3 to 5,000 years ago. Some may have gone into the Bronze Age, but they seem to have gone out of fashion 3,000 years ago. Some are beautifully carved. This is the Towie ball, which is very famous. It was found in Aberdeenshire, the village of, or near the village of Towie. And then a lot of them are these lobed balls. And this is a six-lobed, and that's very regular. And this one is an irregular sort of six-lobed ball, but they're
Oh,
very, very curious. And
indeed.
this is an example of Petra-Spheres. Now you find Petra-Spheres all over the place. I think human beings are just something in our nature that we look to take a river stone that's nearly round. And this one that's on the screen is from Orkney in Scotland. And but the decorated ones have been, over 500 have been found to date. But I think people would go into a stream valley or the ocean and find a stone that was fairly round. This is not a petrosphere from Scotland. This is actually a modern sphere that's about the same size, that hand size, that is made from petrified wood. But it gives you an idea of what these folks were starting with something, and they would try to achieve a sphere like
Yeah.
this. And then for some reason, the clever Scots started improvising and creating all these different shapes and forms. So in your in the advertisement that you sent out, you showed some of these irregular shaped ones that are down here. And this is like the holy hand grenade from I always think of Monty Python, but
Oh,
I
yes.
actually believe this is the one that, or there is one I know that is referred to by the experts as a hand grenade. And these are sort of
Hmm.
odd shaped versions. There's some flattened versions like this one over here. There's some really crudely done versions. But the 400 or 500 that have been found of these spheres that seem to have started as a sphere, and this one is from the Ness of Brogdar and up in the Orkney Islands, and was found recently in 2013, and it's one of the few that have been found in situ. So they know that this is a Paleolithic site. This is on the northern coast, the islands on the top of Scotland, middle of nowhere, 3 to 5 thousand years ago,
Yes.
and yet they really sophisticated village there at the time and society, and clearly on the ancient trade routes that are crossing from all over. And these curious balls that show up, they show up individually. They don't tend to show up in graves. I think a couple of them may have been found in graves. Um, they're often just plowed up out of fields, and nobody really knows what the hell they are.
Hmm.
There are lots of speculations. Are these weapons? Were they on a mace? Were they uh, weights? Were they some kind of game ball? All
Yeah.
kinds of different speculations, some crazy ones too, where they were like, well, and that's a different on another subject. But uh, what I tend to think that these may have been some kind of ritualistic, perhaps spiritual, perhaps religious object, or perhaps a status symbol for a wealthy family. So they're all individuals. Half of them are six-lobed that have been found, but they're all individual balls. Others are of various shapes, like this one with multiple knobs, and some of them up to 160 knobs like this. You've
Nice.
got others that are spiked like this, which it looks like a weapon, sort of, except that they're not broken. So they seem to have been treated very carefully. And and then the Towie ball, the famous Towie ball, which is just beautifully decorated. And they're curious. Sometimes there's no decoration on one lobe, and this is a four-lobed ball. And
Very,
then
very easy to
decoration,
hold, right?
yeah, and beautiful to hold. And so one idea is that we're coming from a society that's there's no writing particularly, and so an oral histories are being told, or people are talking, and perhaps you held this in your hand as,
Mhm.
well, as a speaking device to sort of hold the floor.
Yes.
Um, but I think also there's some that really look badly made too. So I'm thinking you'd have good craftsmen in a family. Perhaps this is a status symbol also for a family. And like the one down here with the odd shapes on it that perhaps it's like a Cadillac in the driveway and then you add fins to it in the 1950s or something. So you changed the design, but again,
Right.
I'm just
Right.
spitballing here. And these are from Skara Brae, which is again very close to the Ness of Brogdar. Now, one of the things, and these slides are from a wonderful talk, Neolithic carved stone balls in context, a new find from Sheffermuir, um, by these fellows at the National Museum of Scotland. And so this is really scholarly good stuff. And they point out some of the other stuff online that can be a little kooky. And maybe I'll make the list here with them too. So at some point.
That's all
But
right.
what's they've studied these balls very carefully. Here's examples of different six-lobed balls, and they're different in shape. And there's some indication these look like they may have been worked over time by different hands. These are different balls, but this may show the process of like taking what was once a circle, carving it into six lobes, then carving it further down and carving it further down and then carving it further down. And that many
Yeah.
hands may have been working this over the course of 100 years or several hundred years and might have been a family for a long time.
Right. Marking the passage of time, literally,
Yeah, who
you know,
knows? Just we're an amazing species, but I sort of have a fantasy. These went suddenly out of usage around 3,000 years ago. And I've got an idea that the Lord of the Manor comes home and says to his son, where's the damn ball? I can't find the ball. And he says, Dad, I threw it down the well. I'm sick of the damn ball. Family's been obsessed with it for hundreds of years. And if you're giving me any more crap, I'll throw you down the well with it. Anyway, so that's again, I'm just spitballing. So now what's curious about, you don't find the carved stone balls in Ireland, but look at these markings. And this, the experts will point out too. This is the Neolithic culture in the lower that is at the famous New Grange, and then the Towie ball that was found in Towie, Aberdeenshire.
right. Look at the
And
similarity there, huh?
yes, so we're
My
dealing
goodness.
with the same culture, it seems. And again, this
Right.
goes back to like who were these people, which I'll get into in a second here. Um, and I'm going next to a wedding of my niece in Ireland next month, and I'll be able to I'm going to get up to New Grange because I've been wanting to see that for ages. Now, who made the carved stone balls? And many people have heard of the Picti or the painted people. I'm sorry, go back. That
Sure. Picks.
were uh, first named. The Scots were amazing because they held back the Romans who came into England, what, 60 BC, and they were there till I don't know, 100 AD. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
about a one. I was going to say about 100. It's good to say yes.
And they managed to keep the Scots were so ferocious fighters that they managed to keep the Romans out of there, and the Romans built Hadrian's Wall, and I believe there was another parallel wall up there.
Yes,
But
Antoine. Yes.
yeah, I think so. Now, the Picti, the tribes up there took on the name the Pictland and Picti. The Romans referred to these people as the Picti long after actually they'd left, or shortly after they'd left, as a painted warriors. So they were painted, and here's an example of a woman, Pictish woman, covered in flower tattoos, and that's what I've been doing. And threatening, I'm not going to show up in a kilt at the games. I'm going to go naked, painted like a crazy Pictish warrior because I got some Mackay blood in me, and I think they're from the northern part of the island. Anyway,
At
uh,
the Highland
but
Games, yeah, sure.
the story goes that the Picts came out of central, or the mythology is they came out of Central Europe. And there's a story in Ireland, I believe, that they showed up on the shores of Ireland, and all men, and to looking for land to settle. And the Irish said, "Get the hell out of here!" But there's land over there. Cross over that channel, and you can go over there. And the Scots said, "But we don't have any women, and give us some women." So they gave them the women, and they went off and they settled. Well, the reality is very likely, and this is, if this is the kind of thing you could freeze the screen and read all this because it's very interesting. But
Yeah.
uh, the Greeks had named the original British as being tattooed folks, and they had a word. They called them Britannia or something. But modern Welsh, anyway, has the original Common Brittonic form had an initial P, not a B, which would give Brydain, and uh, would sound like Prytain, which again
Okay.
indicates maybe the entire British colony people were one and they were all painted people or something. So they may have all been one at some point. So now, and this is where I step into off of into my own sphere. And I've seen some speculation by some serious people too about this, but there's a very curious phenomenon also. Again, these Scottish stone balls, they're all very uniform in size, handheld, but there are some that are a little smaller, like this one. This is the one that came out of the Orkney Islands. And they disappear 3,000 years ago. And the Romans show up in Britain uh, 2,000 years ago or so. And suddenly, and what's been found are hundreds of these peculiar bronze objects. This is a dodecahedron, which is actually a geometric shape, a classic geometric shape. And this is one was found that is an isocohedron. And this is very similar to the dodecahedron, except that the isocohedron has 20 knobs and 12 faces. I think I got that right. And the dodecahedron has 12 knobs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11. Well, anyway, they're opposites.
Oh,
So opposite faces or knobs on them. But these curious objects that the Romans had, and they found them in forts associated with soldiers.
right. All over the Roman
Sometimes
world or just there, John?
they're found all over Northern Europe
Okay.
and into Britain.
Yeah.
And although you're dealing now with a highly literate society, the Romans, there's nothing in their literature about what the hell these things are either, which is so curious. So this is where some people, and I'm thinking there's some uh, validity to it. And the part that I'll say is not valid, but Plato, who liked order and came up with ideal forms, produced in one of his ancient writings that these five Platonic solids. You have a pyramid here. You've got a cube. This is a octahedron, and the dodecahedron and the icosahedron. That they make up all classical elements are made from these, and that nice Greek philosophic idea. Now, the
Right.
curious thing that uh, some of the here's the icosahedron and the dodecahedrons. Again, there are about 100 of these found, and one of these found, which is interesting, which is curious. And these have all kinds of crazy ideas too. that they might have been used as knitting gloves or something. You put your fingers in and you run gloves on, but those are kind of dismissed because there's no need for. I mean, it's obviously a lot of work to go to, and also the knitting didn't appear till about for hundreds of years later.
Right.
So, but in the crazy realm and the of the Scottish spheres, some of the folks have noticed that some of the Scottish Petra-Spheres, there's a square, and they can see sort of the classic uh, platonic solids there. And this would be the icosahedron, I believe, or one of these. And so some people are thinking very much like, oh, perhaps the Scots were so smart that they knew about these platonic solids before Plato. And I don't think that's the case. And one of the reasons I do is because down here at the bottom, I read some time ago, and I just pulled up an article too recently that uh, the pyramids, the Great Pyramids in Egypt, are of if you take the base and you draw a circle around it, that they made their pyramids twice as tall as they were wide around the base side.
Okay.
And that, then if you look at it mathematically, and the number pi is 1.4, what is it, 1.414,
Three
is
one four.
incorporated into that
3.1.
structure, that design. But,
3.1.
and some people go, oh, well, they must have known about pi long before, anybody else knew about pi, or there were aliens coming down and teaching them about this advanced mathematics and stuff. And I think it's just a matter of the building techniques they were using that sort of stumbled on the incorporation of pi. And that could be the case here too, that there was a stumbling on. It's not really by accident because it has to do with the physical world and reality, but they stumbled on these shapes that when the Romans showed up and they knew about dodecahedrons and isocohedrons, they may have recognized it. And I wonder, and this is where I'm totally spitballing, and I may be totally out to lunch, but I wonder if the Romans came along and they found some of these stone balls and they were intrigued by them and they created their own version. And we're now in the Bronze Age, so they can make them out of metal. And there's just one more piece of evidence that sort of may or may not lend some credence to that idea. If you look again at the 400 to 500 stone balls that have been found, the carved stone balls, they're all in northern Scotland, except for like three in Ireland, three in England, and one in Norway, which may have been carried there by the Normans, by the Vikings. Now, this shows where the dodecahedrons have been found, and they're all in northern Europe. And they go right up to the Scottish border, and then they don't cross the Scottish border because the, the Scots kept the Romans out anyway. So that's sort of my wacky theory about where these may have come from. But there's one last little piece I want to mention. How are we doing time-wise?
We
We
have
okay?
about we have 8.5 minutes.
Cool. Okay, great. This is something I also saw recently that a recent article, 2023, from New Scientist. Were found, I don't know when these were found, but these mysterious stones that have been worked clearly by hominid hands, because this is 1.4 million years ago. This is before
Well,
our species, Homo sapiens sapien, or Homo
okay. Yeah.
sapiens. And this may be Homo erectus. And probably, it may have been used as hammerstones, which a lot of cultures do, and native cultures and all kinds of cultures, but they don't go to the trouble of making them as round as possible. Is this something peculiar about, again, these clever humanoids, these clever human beings? And I was just reading an article today too. They're pushing the date back for speech. There's some new papers showing that it indicating that Homo erectus, up to 1.6 million years ago, they may have been capable, may have been speaking. They may have had a language, which is pushing the data language way, 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 way back.
Uh,
So again, this is an indication just of we're a we're a interesting creatures. We are very creative. We're very destructive
And
too. But
these are
we
these are what, Israel? I'm sorry.
Yeah, these are in Israel. Yeah,
Okay,
which
okay.
again is one of the places where you had uh, human beings and hominids coming out of Africa at some different points. It seems like the Homo erectus came into Europe very early. The Neanderthals who and the Denisovians who are close cousins that have just been discovered recently, and there's another
Yes,
group,
I read about
and
it.
they seem to be hybrids of perhaps Homo erectus and human hybrids or something. I'm not uh, informed well enough. I'm not expert enough to understand it, but this is on the path to humans coming out of Africa. So
Yeah, and these stones look like they're on the path to becoming the other stones, don't they?
yes, and they're the size of
Right.
baseballs.
Yep.
It would be held in your hand, which is so interesting. So
Oh,
so
oh.
anyway, that's my stone sphere story, and I will be back. I'll be talking about the Scots prisoners. I have my map that I perfect. I put a lot of more work into. I've got it pretty well done.
Oh, good.
We,
Right.
the Old Berwick Historical Society, are part of a coalition that Dr. Emerson Baker of Salem University in Massachusetts is putting together to look for the Scots prisoners' home sites and grave sites in Maine and New Hampshire. And he's out raising a lot of money right now, and he's going to start a 3-year project, hopefully in 2025, starting to do digs in, I believe, first in Durham, New Hampshire, and one in York, Maine, and one in South Berwick, where the old Berwick Historical Society is. So
Oh,
I'm
good.
really looking forward to be involved with that. And
I know you mentioned a property, John, where there was I think three home sites or something you said was undisturbed or something you could look. Is that one of them?
3 home sites that are undisturbed.
On the map, you mentioned a place that could be dug because it's open
Oh,
right now.
well,
Or
yes, yes. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yes. Of course, we've had a lot of development in the area. So, a lot of ancient sites like these have been destroyed or
right.
or moved. But I noticed that some of the Scots prisoners in Maine, there's a part on the York River where there were 3 or 4 homesteads from some of the Scots POWs, and that's almost completely undeveloped right now. So a nice location to look for. Tad and the other team, which is from Durham University in England, Salem State uh, University, Emerson's in Massachusetts, University of New Hampshire, National Park Service, and the University of St. Andrews in Scotland. So
Wonderful.
this is going to be really exciting. But again, I'll be giving my talks hopefully at the a lot of the Highland Games this year. And since I started this, I thought I was Irish and Greek, but I found out I'm 40% Scottish.
All
So I don't
right.
have to wear
Welcome.
my chanter. So I found my crazy tribe finally. So,
Right.
but thank you.
All right. Thank you, John, for coming back on.
My pleasure, really.
All right. All right. Hope you enjoyed it, everyone. Excuse me.
And I'll see you
We'll see
Saturday.
we'll see you on Saturday, John. Touch not.